And good evening, everyone. This is meeting number 12, Monday, October 17th. This is a special council meeting just to tie off some loose ends. And so it will be short and to the point. Due to the efforts to contain the spread of COVID-19 and to protect all individuals, the council chamber will not be open to the public to attend standing committee or council meetings until further notice. Members of the public who wish to observe or participate by providing oral comments for matters that are on the agenda must attend the virtual meeting by obtaining a Zoom invite in advance by emailing jshime@westlincoln.ca by October 17th before 4:30. Meeting will be recorded and available on the township's website within 48 hours of the meeting unless otherwise noted. The township of West Lincoln, being part of the Niagara region, is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Wendurong, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The township of West Lincoln is part of the regional municipality of Niagara, stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Are there any pecuniary and or conflict of interests? I see none, Madam Clerk. So we're going to move on to, are there any requests to address items on the agenda? I'm going to go to IT and ask if there's anybody indicating.
Not seeing any, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. And Madam Clerk, did anybody email any notes prior to 4:30 today for the meeting tonight? I don't hear any, so I'm going to proceed. Tonight we...
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. No, I thought it was unmuted. I was muted. I'm sorry. The other way around.
Not a problem. Okay. So we're going to start this meeting with a public meeting. It's a site alteration application. The owners are Mars Home, file number 3000-003-22. The agent is AJ Clark and Associates Limited. The purpose of this meeting is to give an opportunity for the public and members of council to provide comments and or ask questions regarding the importing of fill on lands owned by Mars Homes, Smithville West Inc. for the property legally described as Plan M98 Lot 9, being a parcel of land located at the corner of Regional Road 20 and South Grimsby 5 in Smithville, and the approval of a site alteration application. Public notice was circulated to applicable agencies and neighboring properties within 120-meter radius of the proposed project site on September the 16th, 2022. The Director of Planning and Building, Brian Treble, please explain the purpose and reason for the public meeting with respect to site alteration application file number 3000-003-22, submitted by AJ Clark and Associates Limited on behalf of Mars Homes, Smithville West, Inc.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an application that has been discussed extensively between planning, building, and public works over the last few months, actually. And it's been expressed to the township that it's urgent that we consider this application so that they can proceed to get the site ready for development in 2023. And in order to do so, they are going to have to import fill to the lands across the entire parcel. Some areas will have to have soil cut away, and in other parts they'll have to have soil added, such that by the northwest corner of the lands, back in behind the Greek Community Center and that kind of area of the property, they're talking somewhere in the range of 1.5 to 2 meters of fill ultimately. But this application tonight is only for the first 1,000 truckloads or 10,000 cubic meters of what was originally an application for 42,500 cubic meters. So the approval tonight that's being requested based on staff review, is considerably scaled back from the original application brought before us. The concern is, given some of the delays that have occurred to date and some of the servicing complications on this site, that further delays could occur if we don't consider this application and allow for the importation of this 10,000 cubic meters. And my understanding is that the site is located down in Stony Creek that the soil is coming from, and soils reports and quality assessment work has already been done. So as you indicated, Mr. Mayor, on September 16th, we circulated notice to over 130 neighboring property owners. And they've had the last month to let us know if they have any comments or concerns, and to obtain a link for tonight's meeting. And as of right now, we have not heard from any of the property owners in the area. They all have remained silent with respect to any comments or concerns. The closest neighbor, as I indicated, based on the location of the site, is really the Greek Community Center itself. The first 10,000 cubic meters is proposed to be placed on the soil behind the Greek Hall. That's the area that will be impacted by this approval, should it be granted by committee. So staff from Planning, Building, and Public Works have worked extensively with Mr. Enos, who is an attendee tonight and can certainly speak to and answer any questions of committee. So we have worked with them around truck routes, mud mats and timing of operations. There will be a significant deposit that's required due to the site alteration agreement that will be required should council support this application. And the size of the security deposit is dependent on the size of the approval that you grant tonight. And I think it's spelled out actually in the agreement based on a draft of 10,000 cubic meters being the approval that's before you for consideration. So, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if I have a whole lot more to say at this point, but I'm happy to answer questions as well. Staff did not prefer to bring this application forward at this time, but due to the concerns of the industry and the engineers, we brought it forward to give consideration to the least amount possible to keep the project moving forward. It does have draft plan of subdivision approval, and once it obtains a subdivision agreement, they could start hauling the fill in without any further input from the township. In some respects, this provides us an opportunity to collect a security deposit for the amount that's approved here tonight, which is above what would be collected during the site alteration work. So I'll leave it there for now, Mr. Mayor, and answer questions later.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Director. I'm going to ask at this time, is the property owner and or their authorized agent present and wanting to speak to the site alteration application?
Yes, there's James Enos is on.
Okay,
I can move him over if you want.
please do.
Okay, so am I coming on by voice?
Yes,
Yes.
you are. Yep.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add to what Brian has said, other than the fact that our client, Mars Homes, who is going to be building the Thrive community up there, is currently working on a project down in Stony Creek, and they have 10,000 cubic meters that they need to dispose of. And up here, we need the material, so the timing is important to us because they're under construction now, wanting to start right away, and we'd like a place to put this material. So the timing is really good. And if not, we're going to have to move the material somewhere else and then go search again for material.
Okay, thank you, sir, for that comment. And of course, you'll stick around and be available to council when we get to that point. I'm going to ask the clerk, are there any oral or written submissions from anyone present on the Zoom meeting regarding the proposed site alteration application? Madam Clerk?
No, Mr. Mayor, there's not any written correspondence that I have received.
Okay. If any members of the public that are in attendance at the Zoom public meeting and would like to make comments and or provide written comments, they should do so now by using one of the two options. Using your computer or smartphone, select raise your hand control that can be found on the Zoom options list displayed on your screen, and using a landline or telephone, dial *9. This will notify staff that you have raised your hand. Once you have been acknowledged to speak, please unmute your microphone, and once you are finished, please remute your microphone. Prior to speaking, please provide your name and address for the record. I'm going to say, Kevin, are there anybody indicating that they wish to speak from the public?
So right now, nobody has their hands.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we'll move on to council. Council, do any members of council have any oral or written submissions on the proposed site alteration application? At this point, you can ask questions or if you would like of Mr. Enos or our director. Just making sure. Oh, go ahead, Councilor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I wasn't sure if I should use the digital hand or my main
Yeah, I
hand.
know, and I adjusted my screen so then I saw it there. Good.
Okay, I just know it moves the icon. Sometimes makes it easier to see with all the screens. So I guess I'll start with, I want to get on at least public record here, a little bit more clarity and understanding why this matter is coming now. And I would just want to be clear, like, again, like we're in a situation where the election's a week away, and any decision we make tonight is going to impact that future council, whatever that looks like and whatever they have to deal with. And I'm just very surprised, as I've expressed to staff, that we're having to even deal with this. I hear, what the gentleman there said, the representative, in terms of the situation they're in between the bottom of the hill and trying to get the dirt up the hill, and they're trying to, maximize, I guess, what they have there. But at the same time, this is also like a situation where whatever decision we make tonight, like, we can't be held accountable for, and so again, I know we're hearing that we haven't heard from much people from the public at the same time. But at the same time, we also always hear right after decisions made, and miraculously or magically, they find our emails and are somehow Canada Post hasn't found their mailbox. So I guess I just want to.
May I interrupt just for a second there, Councillor? And I apologize for interrupting.
No worries.
Your concern is valid, but I think you would probably agree that the concern might be better addressed at the time of the perhaps
the actual resolution.
At the time of the when we receive the at the resolution outside the public. Like, this is
Okay.
This is dealing with the public, like the discourse and the questions and about the public meeing.
Okay.
And so if you could table that, I get it.
Yes, I maybe gave a little bit too much context there. So to go right to the question through you, can the director speak to the urgency that is brought us here tonight? And I want more specifically to understand, I guess, what why is it urgent for them? Not just because they want to maximize this, but what is the risk to them versus the risk to the township? This is a non-emergency urgent matter. To me, at this point, we should only be dealing with emergency matters, and this isn't far from an emergency matter. So to bring committee and council into this at this point, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director of Planning, could you just speak to the specifics of why this is urgent, at least by the, I guess, the developer's perspective?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can certainly speak to the reason and the messaging that I was given. I'm not aware that we're in a situation where you can only make emergency type decisions. I think that's a lame duck period, which I don't believe we are in, but I'm not qualified to speak to that, as well as Joanne and perhaps our CAO. So with respect to the application, Garrett Bourma and I had a meeting with an engineer that represents pretty much all of the developers in the development community, working towards servicing solutions for the urban boundary expansion, and specifically the Northwest Quadrant. A lady by the name of Suzanne Mammal, about a month ago, actually, it was probably the early half of September, and she expressed concern then, given all of the extensive delays that have occurred trying to sort out servicing in the Northwest Quadrant, that another 8-month delay was the timeline she expressed would occur if we didn't support the site alteration request that was before us. Now, at that point, it was for the full 42,000 cubic meters. As I say, we've since whittled it down to the 10,000 cubic meters that's part of the site specifically that Mr. Enos spoke to just a few minutes ago. So my concern and the expressed concern brought to me was that we needed to provide a sense of timing sensitivity to this file, given the delays that have occurred. Back in 2015, when this land was brought into the urban boundary, the engineer that worked in our behalf at that point had identified ways to provide sewer and water servicing to the Northwest Quadrant. And unfortunately, pretty much all of his detail was inaccurate. And we have to now provide a new fire service, which Mars Homes is fronting, and Mr. Enos can certainly speak to, I'm sure, some of the details around that as well. And there will also be sewer upgrades required to the streamside pumping station that Mars Homes will be obligated to provide as well. None of that was foreseen at the time these lands were brought into the urban boundary. So the delays caused by all of that additional research and the delays foreseen or concern of delay if we didn't process this application was enough for Suzanne Mammal to stress with me the urgency of proceeding as quickly as possible with this application if we could.
Okay, and so if I could follow up, Mr. Mayor, I understand. So not waiting a few weeks is going to save the month somehow. Is that what I'm understanding?
I don't have Suzanne Mammal here to explain the detail around that, but that's what I understood, yes.
All right, so the other, I'll move on from that. I might speak to that a little bit more later tonight. The other thing I wanted to mention is the enforceability component. I know we're taking a security, and I know they have a breakdown here and they can only operate between 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., but that sometimes falls outside of the scope of our bylaw, if I'm not mistaken, when they would actually be available to enforce some of those matters should there be an issue, should there be non-compliance with the actual requirements to execute this. So maybe through you, Mr. Chair, to our director again, could you just clarify what the hours of operation are for bylaw, and do they fully comply with what's being recommended here between the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. that they're allowed to move and transport dirt?
First of all, through you, Mr. Mayor, we would operate on a complaint basis. So my bylaw staff aren't necessarily in town every day from the hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., but certainly on a complaint basis, bylaw can be called in. One of the bylaw officers does live in town and is fairly available should I need him, and I've done so in the past. The other officer lives in Hamilton, so not all that far away as well. So I can have bylaw here if there is a complaint, but we wouldn't be operating unless there was a complaint outside normal business hours.
Okay, and I appreciate that. But as we know, and you and I have talked a few times about other unrelated matters, when there has been issues that have happened during times where we haven't been able to get that plane in, our staff hasn't seen that complaint, and we know that everyone looks for corners to cut. So my concern, honestly, is going to be these trucks trying to race up and down the hill. I guess they're running against some kind of clock here. The fact they couldn't wait a few more weeks for the next term of council has some concerns that a few weeks is going to save them somehow 8 or 10 months. I find that hard to believe personally, but that's just my opinion on the matter. But that's all I'll say for now, Mr. Mayor. I'll yield the floor to anybody else on committee here.
Okay, I'm going to let the director just
one final comment, Mr. Mayor, that I meant to say earlier, and that is the fact that we have written into the language of the permit the fact that our bylaw officer has the right to revoke the permit at any point. So even if they operate outside the hours, we can terminate the entire permit. And not just shut them down for going beyond the hours. We can basically revoke the permit the way it's written. So it would be foolish for them to take that risk. I would think, based on the urgency they're suggesting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Trombetta, I saw you nod.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, through you to Director Treble. The entrance you said is the Greek lands, the community hall. Is that off of Highway 20? There is what you said.
The entrance, through you, Mr. Mayor, the entrance will actually be the proposed road that will access the subdivision. So it's actually closer to where the car wash is proposed.
So the entrance, the turning will be on Highway 20, let's say coming left from Stony Creek. So pretty much in front of the school is what I'm trying to say is is where the entrance and exiting is going to be, correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's probably over on the other side of Streamside Drive, so near the condo development. It's basically immediately to the west of the old Strong's Auto building that was there.
Okay,
It's right beside that. I think it's fenced, if I'm picturing it right. There's a fence right there. It'd be right to the west of that fence.
now the other question is the 1,000 cubic meters is going to be stockpiled and not dozed. It's going to be sitting there as a pile.
No, they are going to, I believe, remove the topsoil and place the soil on the ground, as I understand, through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, but so my question is, so are they doing a compaction and fill operation, or are they stockpiling the fill there?
Mr. Enos can perhaps speak to that better through you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Enos.
Yeah, we had wanted to stockpile, but that was declined. So we're in the permit, we've agreed to spread and compact.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Trombetta.
Okay, now I got probably some further questions at the motion. I don't know how I'm feeling with this one. I don't like the timing on this issue during the circumstances, but I'll have further questions later on, Mr. Mayor. The school does, the delay in the school and with the 1,000 trucks coming up is a big concern of mine. I want to make that for the record right now. That I have children that go to that school, and I know how busy that is in that morning, especially with the roundabout and the backup and the delays. So I don't know where I sit right now, but I'll further question at the time of the motion, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Any others on the public meeting portion of and questions? Okay, fair enough. Please be advised that a recommendation report is being considered by council following the public meeting this evening. If members of the public wish to observe council's decision with respect to this application for site alteration, please remain on the Zoom meeting. If you are unable to remain in attendance, please email the township clerk, Joanne Shime, at jshime@westlincoln.ca to request confirmation of council's decision. So then that concludes our public meeting with respect to the proposed site alteration application at the hour of 6:52. Okay, I'll just click this down here and pull this up. Okay. Now, okay, sorry. I just I had my notes and then let me see here. Okay, so moving on, I'm gonna, where did that go? My apologies, everyone. I just I had them up here and then I clicked one thing too many.
5.1 other business, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, okay. So under other business, 5.1, there's basically this one actually buys some time. So we have a memo, site plan delegation bylaw update to planning report PD-80-2022. This is for information. I don't know if the director of wants to speak to it, but
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can just really quickly. The last meeting that we had, we brought forward a report as planning staff to recommend that we pass a bylaw to delegate some authority to staff with respect to site plan approvals. The draft bylaw that was attached that night, we sent to the township solicitor for his input before we brought it forward for approval. And hence that led to a delay. We didn't end up bringing the bylaw to the last council meeting. It is here tonight. Only because Mr. Richardson was of the opinion that we should split the bylaw in two and have two different bylaws, one under the Planning Act, one under the Municipal Act. So what's before you tonight is a tweak of the bylaws at the guidance of Mr. Richardson for approval.
okay. So is there, Madam Clerk, I'm just going to ask, is there a vote that we need to take up, or is it just for information at this point?
It is just for information, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Then moving on, and I found my notes, and so thank you for that little delay there, Mr. Director. 5.2, Director of Planning and Building, Brian Treble. Recommendation report, PD 81-2022, Mars Home, Smithville West, Inc. Site alteration application for the Thrive Development File number 3000-003-22. That recommendation report, PD 81-2022, regarding Mars Homes, Smithville West, Inc. Site alteration application for Thrive Development File number 3000-003-22, dated October 17, 2022, be received, and that an authorizing bylaw as found in attachment 2 to this report be passed to permit mayor and clerk to sign a site alteration agreement in draft form as found in attachment 3, ensuring compliance with their draft approval plan of subdivision, as well as the conditions as set out in this report and draft site alteration permit, and that in conformance with Part 8 of bylaw 2016-41, being a site alteration bylaw to regulate the placing or dumping of fill in the township of West Lincoln, a site alteration permit in form similar to that found in attachment 1 to this report be issued by staff once all required agreements, securities, plans, and drawings are satisfactorily submitted, subject to the conditions as noted in the permit, and that all efforts be taken by the owner to acknowledge and protect neighboring residents, including but not limited to dust control, noise control, obeyance of the Highway Traffic Act, etc. Failure to do so will provide enforcement staff and police with authority to address law infractions. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Jonker, and a seconder, please. Councillor Ganand, thank you. Comments or questions by anyone? Councillor Riley, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I kind of like sit here and I guess think about this, I'm still really troubled by the timing of this. I really think it'd be irresponsible for this council to support this, not knowing full well who's going to be leading the community in the next next term of council. Again, as I mentioned, the public meeting there, I think this the timing of this is awful. I get what they're trying to achieve here. Unfortunately, I feel like we just literally be, and to use a word that's in the resolution here, we literally be dumping this on the next term of council, and we can't even be held accountable for it, depending on who comes back and who doesn't. So again, I really wish that they, maybe got their stuff together a little bit sooner. This is something that we could have dealt with, easily a month or 2 or 3 ago. And I certainly don't understand the real urgency here. Like, I hear what they're saying, but at the same time, I don't know why this is something that's being rushed through at this point, not when they could have just waited a few more weeks and let that next term of council really sink their teeth into this. So at this point, I'll be opposing this, and I'm going to ask Mr. Mayor for a recorded vote.
Okay, thank you. And I saw Councillor Trombetta, then Councillor Jonker, then Councillor Rayner. Go ahead, Councillor Trombetta.
No, I didn't have my, I'll go a little
Okay.
later, Mr. Mayor. I thought the Councilor Rainer was first.
No, Councillor Jonker, please.
Yeah, I'm just a little surprised that we're making this more than it needs to be. I think what it is we have a partner here in our community that's trying to get some work done. And the question that I guess I have as well, though, is did we not already approve them a stockpile? Or did we not approve that? If my memory serves me correctly, I thought we had approved that they store a stockpile here, and now they're actually coming back with even less, and they're going to strip it and put it somewhat a lot nicer than what we had already approved. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the director, am I wrong in thinking that, or is my memory not? Yeah, is my memory right or wrong?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, your memory is correct, but that was last year. So that permit has expired, and a new permit is required for the proposal. The other one that we have done this year was to do with Budlands, and the Budlands have been working through a process. This would be very similar to that, only a significantly smaller scale so far based on the process that's before us tonight.
Okay, thank you for that,
Okay.
Mr. Director. Go ahead, Councillor.
So to follow up on that, basically, this council has already approved stockpiling 42,000 cubic meters, and now we're making a big issue on them reapplying and only bringing in 10,000 and stripping the topsoil and getting it way nicer looking than what we had approved earlier. So to me, this is, I don't understand what the concern is here. To me, it's pretty straightforward, pretty easy to say yes to, and to thank them for doing this instead of what we had already allowed them to do in that last one. So I can't see why we can't approve this. Yes, there's going to be some safety issues, but there always is when you're dealing with trucks moving. But I think this is pretty reasonable to pass, and I can't understand why we can't do this in our last council meeting. And yeah, so.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to go Councillor Rayner, please.
Thank you through the chair to Mr. Treble. Mr. Treble, this property we're talking about, is this the one where that hokey land swap deal was done a few years ago in order to make this viable?
Through
Okay,
you,
technical term.
yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't think hokey is necessarily the planning term.
I'm
We
trying
did,
to find an adjective, but since it was such a weird, strange,
No, it
not
isn't.
normal situation, I thought hokey sounded pretty good.
no, actually, the province was quite impressed with the approach that we took at that time, Mr. Mayor, and I don't think even the province would call it hokey. Having said that, though, yes, this is part of the swap that occurred in 2015.
Okay, so that's part of my burr in my bonnet. The other thing, Councillor Yonker mentioned that they are a partner in our community. Obviously, Councillor Yonker is not familiar, but this is an agricultural community, and partners don't destroy agricultural land. So these are not partners. They are not partners in an agricultural community. They actually take away agricultural land. So to support something like this and the process of trying to quickly destroy this land so they can make money on development is not exactly in the best interest of this community, especially when this community is clearly labeled in the region of Niagara as an agricultural community. So I certainly cannot support this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. And Councillor Gannon, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So to you, Mr. Treble, through you, Mr. Mayor, can we be in some form of difficulty for slowing down this application? Is this one of the things that we need to worry about when we nitpick something that's a legitimate application that has been asked of us, and we have responded with a scaled down version that we're allowing, and we now are looking at perhaps turning that down? Is that one of the things that the province is finding fault with when it comes to planning issues?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is not a Bill 109 issue. This would be outside Bill 109. Having said that, though, we do have more control by applying an agreement through this process than we do if it's part of the subdivision approval later on, when they can just proceed and do all 42,000 cubic meters without any further security. So it's a bit of a catch-22 in a way. It's not caught in Bill 109, but it certainly is something that can be processed through site alteration with more control than outside the site alteration process.
Okay, I'm going to go to Councillor Trombetta, then over to Councillor Riley for a second time. Go ahead, Councillor
Thank you,
Trombetta.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I think something needs to be clear here. No one has a problem, at least I don't have a problem with the importing of fill at this, like for this site. The issue that I have is that this is being slipped in a week before the election. Again, if there's delays, we haven't had a sitting meeting. I don't know when our last sitting meeting was the end of September. So it's been over a month. We haven't had a meeting. This has been slipped in a week before the election. And I think that's the issue. And I want everybody on council to understand, I'm not opposed to the importing of the fill. It's the timing of the issue that I am opposed to. Next week, there's going to be a new council. If there is considerable delays for the schools, if there's considerable traffic delays, we are responsible for that. And then the new council is going to say, well, it's the old council that voted for it. Go talk to them. That is my issue with this site application at the moment. So I don't see what the problem is coming back a week, 2 weeks from now, but there's an urgency obviously on the developer, I understand. But again, this is being slipped in a week before the election. That is why our job is to maintain, to be here for the public if there's concerns or not. And we will not be able to answer that. Whoever's around this horseshoe in about a week. So if you're not around this horseshoe in a week, it's going to get thrown on you. Well, the ex-council are the ones that decided that. Too bad, deal with them. But we're not here. And that is one thing I don't like, how it's being just, unfortunately, the timing of the matter seems that it's slipped in, and this council will have not an opportunity to respond to their decision. No one's saying that they can't ever bring Phil to this site. I'm just saying that it's slipped in for a week before the election. It doesn't hurt that it comes 2 weeks later from now. That with the weather, they're not going to be with this kind of weather over the past week anyways. There's not going to be transporting a Phil anyways. There's people will be spinning wheels trying to export Phil in a muddy weather. So I don't see the urgency. And at this point, I can see how I'm going with this. I think the timing of this manner is really off, being 1 week before the election, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you for the comment. I'm just gonna ask a question then on your behalf, if I could, indulge me. I'm gonna just ask the CAO or the clerk, whoever. There's nothing untoward or illegal about what we're doing, right? Like we're not in a lame duck situation, or because we toss this around, and I don't think all of us understand that. So I just want to make sure that I can hear Councillor Trombetta's concerns, but there's nothing like that would get us in trouble with the ombudsman, correct, Madam CAO or Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to ask our clerk to respond to that but I will say that this process had to follow the due public notice period, which is why we're at this point in the, I think that was a 30-day period, but to our Director of Legal Services, maybe she could confirm that, please.
Thank you, Madam CAO, and through you, Mr. Mayor. We are currently not in a lame duck situation. However, pending what occurs next Monday after the municipal election, we could be into a lame duck situation from council from October 25th to the November 14th until the new term of council commences on November 15th.
Okay. So thank you for that answer. I'm going to go to Councillor Riley, and then I saw Councillor Jonker again. Councillor Riley, go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I kind of what I mentioned originally, and I think I'm hearing consensus there, even with Councillor Trombetta and even Councillor Rayner. It's the timing that's the issue, and this is not about necessarily the lame duck, or at no point did I think we were doing something unlawful. Our staff would never have brought this forward if that was the case, or that would have been part of some kind of confidential item that we would have had to discuss. The reality is it's about accountability. And again, everyone, I guess, maybe perceives what that looks like. But to me, accountability is being able to support something and then be there if things don't work out. And unfortunately, we don't know who's coming back and who's not coming back, right? And so again, this is not anything more. They had more than a year or whatever it was since their last permit. They obviously let that expire. They obviously, whatever reason brought them to that situation happened. Now they're back to us. They need council direction, and the appropriate thing to do is to not weigh in on this at this point and let the next term of council steer that, because they're the ones that are going to have to wear it. And as Councillor Trombetta said, he's spot on. If the things fall off the the wagon there, the wheels fall off the truck, who's to blame? It's going to be shifted on the council before. And they're like, had they only let us weigh in on this, had they only let us bring this idea forward, or whatever the situation that could have maybe prevented something that may or may not happen. Again, it comes back to accountability, and we can't hold ourselves accountable if we're not in office. So again, this has nothing to do with necessarily maybe even the lame duck status or the concern of lame duck, but now having that explained better now I know myself, but I better understand that. But again, I just wanted to make sure that it's very clear that this has nothing to do with what was previously agreed upon. If they thought that they could have done what they needed to do with the first permit, they should have did it. Reality is they didn't. Now they're back, and now this is the situation they were in. And had they come back a few months sooner, maybe the situation is different, because they could have had everything done before we got here. But now it's like Councillor Trombetta says, it feels very sneaky. Feels like it's being slipped in as if this council doesn't know what's going to happen, and we're just going to pass the buck. And I don't support that in any capacity. It goes against my core. So again, just to make sure it's understood, I want a recorded vote, and I will be voting against this.
Okay, I think there's I'm going to go to Kevin. Kevin, is there someone in the gallery that has their hand up? I got a note that someone in the gallery has their hand up.
Yes,
maybe-
there is Anthony.
Okay.
Really?
I think somebody wants to speak from the gallery, so I'm going to let them speak. They probably have an answer for us if that's
Mr. Mayor,
yeah.
I thought the public meeting was for the opportunity for those
Yeah,
in the public,
that
including the
opportunity is
gallery.
gone.
Are we not past that now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm at your indulgence, council. If we can get an answer from an Anthony Chirella, would that help in
An
your
answer to
decision?
what question though? My comment was about
That's a question.
accountability. Yeah, what, I wasn't looking for a question. I know whether or not, I don't know if who's coming
I
back.
don't know
This
when the
person- Does
hand
this
went up.
person see into the future, Mr. Mayor? Can they tell us who's coming back on council so we know who can be held accountable?
Easy, Councilor Riley.
No, I'm just
I
asking, 'cause that's the only question that was out
Councilor
there.
Riley, let's just calm down, just take it down a little bit.
I'm not upset, Mr. Mayor. I'm asking you a question now. I'm
Ca-
asking an actual question.
Councilor Riley. You don't have the floor just
Okay.
yet.
You're bringing people into this meeting, Mr. Mayor, and we don't even
No,
know who they are.
Again. I speak, I am the chair, sir. With all due respect, Councilor Riley, if people object to getting an answer, it may be an answer. I don't know when the hand went up, and I don't know if he's responding to your question or one from previous. So I was informed that there's a hand up, and so I'm with your indulgence. And again, you're right, the public meeting did take place, but somebody had a question. Somebody put out a question, and Anthony seems to think that he has important information. But again, you're right, the public meeting did take place. So again, do we want to hear from the member of the public or not? And you're right, you have every right to refuse to hear from this individual. I'm going to ask them to speak, and if there's an objection, I just need one objection. Okay, Councilor Rayner objected, then unfortunately, Mr. Chirella, you'll have to communicate to us some other way. I'm gonna go that now to I think I had lost my train of thought there, but I think Councilor Jonker was next. Go ahead, Councilor Jonker.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, because we have been talking about why did they wait, what happened, and I think through you, Mr. Chair, to our clerk, you said they filed the application, and yet because of the 30-day and all that, that's why we're here. So that's what I was going to kind of ask, is why did it end up being? So if I don't know if the clerk or the director of planning can answer why it ended up being that we're here tonight discussing this.
Mr. Mayor, I would suggest Brian could probably answer that question best.
Okay, go ahead, Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have the dates exactly in front of me because I don't have the file with me or at my fingertips, but the application came in basically a day after a committee meeting that we had. And as our CIO, I believe it was, indicated earlier, we have to provide 30 days notice in advance of holding a hearing in accordance with the site alteration bylaw. So 30 days out put us to basically, I think it was the end of last week. So this Monday was chosen as the time to hold the hearing to accommodate that application that came in just shy of when it could have been processed for a previous meeting.
Okay, thank you for that information. Councilor Jonker, you have the floor. Yeah, keep going.
So then just one more question to follow up that we keep talking, it's only going to be delayed a couple weeks. But through you, Mr. Mayor, to Director of Planning or how long would this be delayed if we do not pass it tonight?
Mr. Mayor, I can start. I'm not sure, though, the status of meetings next term, but my understanding is that we would have a chance perhaps on December 12th, I think it's December 12th to hold a hearing. Does that date, is that right, Joanne or Bev?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director of Planning and Building. Yes, that is correct. Our first council meeting will be an all committee meeting, which will be held on December 12th is what we have suggested. Per our schedule, we did have a meeting for December 5th, which would have been all committees, but we are thinking with the new council that we'll actually have a special council meeting that night and hold our caucus meeting.
Okay. Just to dovetail, if I could, Mr. Jonker, just would we have to have another public meeting then, or would this public meeting suffice? We'd have to do a public meeting again. I see nods. Yes. Okay. So another public meeting would have to be notified and called and entertained if this is defeated. Okay. Madam CAO.
Sorry, I did nod, but I don't think I was nodding appropriately. I actually was not aware that we'd have to do another public meeting.
Oh, okay. Director Trevel, you kind of gave me the nod the other way. So let's get some words on this.
My understanding is basically that the new term of council would have to hold a meeting that it's making a decision on, so.
Right, and have the opportunity to ask questions. So another public meeting would have to be done. Okay. Councillor Jonker, the floor kind of was still yours, so. If you're good, then I'm going to go to Councillor.
Okay, so.
Oh.
Yeah, so basically, a couple things that I know I find here then, like we're talking, well, this is only going to hold it up a couple weeks, but it actually, in all reality, I'm thinking we're going to be holding this up like 3 months, right? By the time we're in October, so November, December, and then into January before this would actually get approved, or at the end of December. Is that correct? Because to me, that seems pretty severe and pretty unfair to a subdivision that's already been approved. This is going through the subdivision.
Oh, I think we lost him.
Lost them.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, he's back.
Yeah, I just lost my service there for a second. Rural internet. So basically, by not passing it tonight, we're going to be holding this up it could be almost close to 3 months, and in that time this land is going to be sitting empty, no work getting done. All this is going to do is drag out the development of land that's sitting vacant already. So I think we need to pass this and let and I think there was no public interest in this. Nobody reached out to us after 30 days to say they have concerns or they're expressing grave problems here. And then until tonight, when councillors are having a grave concern. So it just seems kind of interesting where this is going. And I think we need to just approve it and carry on.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rayner, did you want to speak, Councillor Rayner? Yeah.
Yeah, just I agree with Councillor Jonker, and what he's saying is delaying it, but delaying it is for a reason, and the reason has already been mentioned a number of times, as is the reason why it's in front of us now. And I think we pretty well wore this thing out a bunch of times. If it was a record, it wouldn't even sound like the same song. Is it possible we could now do the recorded vote on this, Mr. Mayor?
I'm going to go to Councillor Riley for the last time. Then, if you'll indulge him, then
if there's something new, if there's nothing new, it's just a recording going over and over again, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Councillor Riley. I'm going to let Councillor Rayner judge you on this one. Go ahead.
He's going to be a little right. I just want to say that again, just because we're saying that we haven't heard from any public, we're going to hear the day after this passes. Once this, I know we're not live streaming tonight because we couldn't get the live stream people, but tomorrow when it goes up on the internet and everyone becomes aware of it, the phone calls and emails are going to come in because people didn't get the thing in the mail, or they didn't see whatever notice in the paper. And that, again, we can't just base on the fact that nothing's been received. If you're in touch with the pulse of the community, you know kind of what they're thinking and what they're feeling. And in this situation, given the timing, they're going to want counselors that can be held accountable for the decision-making that are doing, not the counselors that are possibly leaving or going out. So again, Mr. Mayor, I agree with Councilor Rayner. I'd like to go forward with the vote if possible. Leave it at you to decide.
Well, I'm going to go to Councilor Ganaan. Go ahead, Madam.
Well, I just want to say the fact, I agree with Councillor Riley, that the fact that there have been no phone calls or emails regarding this situation is not surprising. What will be surprising will be when the trucks start to roll, the number of calls that will come then.
Big
And
time.
so, but my question is, rather than just defeating, is there a way to defer this to the December meeting as opposed to just simply turning it down? Is there a way to delay that decision, some way under proper proceedings?
I'm going to go to the Madam Clerk for that one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Ganaan. Yes, that is a possibility. Someone can put forward a deferral motion to defer the matter to the December 12th council meeting to consider a public meeting and the application at that time. So yes, we would just need someone to move that resolution and have a seconder, and that can be, if passed, it would defer the matter.
Okay,
I would rather move, Mr. Mayor, a deferral of the situation rather than look like we're not supporting the developer. We just don't like the timing with it being a week before the election, but we certainly want it brought back. So
okay.
I'm willing to move that.
My only concern with that is that if we could be in lame duck at that point. So
Not by December.
No.
No,
oh.
Mr. Mayor, sorry.
Oh, okay.
That would be December 12th.
Oh,
and
December
the
12th. Yep.
council,
Okay.
yeah.
After inauguration. Okay.
Yes,
Yep. Sorry. So December 12th, a deferral to December 12th. If we get a seconder, I got good news for Councilor Rayner. It's non-debatable. So if we can get a seconder, then we can just go right to a vote on deferring.
So I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
So my question goes back now to what we heard before from our director regarding if this were to defeat it and coming back, it needs another public meeting. If this gets deferred, does it not need another public meeting? And again, are we not also still pushing this on to the next council without them having a chance to debate this?
Not on December 12th.
And I think I heard the clerk indicate that it would be referred to December 12th for a public meeting and
Okay,
a decision. So
so there would be another public meeting regardless.
Yeah.
So, okay, so
Yeah.
that's just, I'm trying to see if there's something that's being missed here. I must have missed that myself. And okay, well,
All right.
that definitely makes me feel better than having to
All
worry.
right. Will you
about
second
jumping
it?
this. Pardon me?
Councilor Riley, will you second the deferral motion?
The deferral motion, sure.
Okay, so we have a deferral motion on the floor. It's non-debatable. I'm going to call the question the normal way. You asked for a recorded vote earlier, Councilor Riley. I don't know.
Can you have it read one more time for the record, Mr. Mayor?
It's just a deferral motion to defer to December 12th planning meeting.
To let the next term of council
The
deal with
motion
it.
at hand?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. All those in favor? And opposed? And that's carried.
I think Councilor Yonker might have been frozen there. I don't know if you saw. it.
Councilor Jonker, were you in favor or opposed? Uh-oh.
I don't support deferring it.
Okay, you don't. Okay, but it still carries. Just,
That's it for tonight.
we have two verbal updates. Director of 5.3, so that's deferred, Madam Clerk. 5.3 is a verbal update on the crossings of the 20. Go ahead, Director.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I finally have good news with respect to crossings on the 20. The plans came in and were signed by the township on Thursday last week. And within 10 minutes of those plans being received by the township, they were on their way to the township legal counsel for registration. My understanding is that they're trying to have conveyances of the ownership or to the ownership by the end of October, or at least that is the goal. So the process is basically complete finally.
Okay, great. Thank you for that update. And then while you've got the floor, 5.4, a verbal update on the staff recommendation report PD 53.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be quick on this one as well. I had a phone call from Dave Kuzmich of Standpack last week. He and I finally spoke on Friday, and he wanted me to know that notwithstanding the fact that we had granted a minor variance for a building of an additional height to allow for enclosure of the cyclone, and we had waived the minor variance fee and the building permit fee, they weren't proceeding with that concept immediately, and had received the input, I guess, of an acoustical engineer who has recommended that if they change all of the fans on the roof of the building, they will reduce the decibels by some 8. And that is a fairly significant change in noise levels if they can reduce by a decibel reading of 8. So they are in the process of doing that right now. I understand the fan on the cyclone has already been changed, and as has one other fan, and there's another 10 yet to go. But in the meantime, you know, they are going to do that work. But at the end of the process, should that not be successful, the cyclone enclosure is still on the radar as a possibility. But if it truly impacts the noise levels by a reading of 8, the cyclone enclosure might not be required. So they're working with us, keeping us informed, and monitoring as they proceed.
Okay, thank you for that. Any comments or questions by anybody about those? Okay, so then we have no bylaws then to pass because we've deferred all of those from this, and they are all connected to the Mars. Is that correct, Director?
No, Mr. Mayor, the first 2 relate to that memo 5.1.
Oh, okay. I was kind of reading them, and they all kind of dealt with section 41, but okay, no problem. So then, Councillor Ganand, you have the bylaw. You're just going to do 1 and 2 and not the third one, 82. So you're going to do 80 and 81. Go ahead.
I have that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself that leave be granted to introduce bylaws 2022-80 and 2022-81, and that the same shall be considered to have been read a first, second, and third time with 1 reading and are hereby adopted, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and affix the corporate seal thereto, any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding.
Thank you, Councillor. And hang on just a second here. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Jonker, any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. Being no further business, I declare the meeting adjourned at the hour of 7:28. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Yeah.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night.